Alexander the Great, the man who conquered half the world in 11 years. He was only 20 years old when he became the king of Macedonia. At an age when most young men are still figuring out who they are and what they want to do with their lives, Alexander already commanded an army. 11 years later, his name was known from the Balkans to the banks of the Indus River. He had defeated the richest and most powerful empire of his time, crossed thousands of miles of hostile territory, fought countless battles, and yet he died before reaching 33. Alexander the Great was a man who conquered half the known world faster than history could even grasp what was happening. In the 4th century BCE, the world was divided among powerful empires. The greatest of them all was the Persian Empire. Its territories stretched from Asia Minor to India. It had enormous wealth, a vast army, and centuries of experience in ruling diverse peoples. To most, Persia seemed eternal, a kingdom that could never fall. Macedonia, in contrast, seemed almost insignificant. A small kingdom in the north of Greece, considered by many Greeks to be barbaric and inferior. Yet from this unassuming land came a man who would change the ancient world forever. Alexander's father, Philip II, had prepared the foundation for greatness. He understood that victory depends not on the size of the army, but on its organization, training, and leadership. Philip reformed the Macedonian phalanx, strengthened discipline, and transformed his soldiers into a nearly unstoppable military machine. The cavalry, highly trained and fast-moving, became one of the most powerful forces of the time. But when Philip was assassinated in 336 BCE, many thought Macedonia would crumble. Alexander was young, inexperienced, and surrounded by rivals. The Greek city-states questioned his authority, and neighboring kingdoms saw an opportunity. It seemed that the Macedonian throne was about to fall into chaos. Alexander's response was immediate, decisive, and ruthless. He moved quickly to secure his rule, suppress rebellions, and eliminate any opposition. Cities that rose against him were swiftly crushed, often with displays of overwhelming force designed to instill fear. He made it clear that his youth was not a weakness, it was a weapon. Having consolidated his power, Alexander did what few would dare. He declared war on the Persian Empire, a kingdom 10 times the size of Macedonia, wealthy, populous, and centuries old. Many contemporaries thought him insane. In 334 BCE, Alexander crossed the Hellespont into Asia Minor. Legend has it that he was the first to step onto the Asian shore and threw a spear into the ground, claiming the continent as his own. From that moment, there was no turning back. His first major engagement came at the Battle of the Granicus River. The Persians had numerical superiority and confidence in their strength. But Alexander struck swiftly, personally leading the cavalry charge that shattered the enemy lines. The Persian army was routed, and the path into Asia was open. Next came the Battle of Issus. The Persian king, Darius III, personally commanded his troops, hoping to end the Macedonian threat. Yet Alexander once again outmaneuvered him, breaking through the center and forcing Darius to flee. For the first time, the seemingly invincible Persian Empire appeared vulnerable. Alexander never paused. He moved so fast that his enemies had no time to regroup or adapt. Many cities surrendered at the mere rumor of his approach. His name alone became more powerful than his army. Then came Egypt. Unlike in Asia Minor, Alexander was welcomed not as a conqueror, but as a liberator. He was proclaimed pharaoh, son of the god Amun, and recognized as a divine figure. Here, Alexander began to understand a critical truth. Power depends not only on force, but also on perception, belief, and symbolism. In Egypt, he founded Alexandria, a city that would later become a center of learning, culture, and trade for centuries. It was clear that Alexander was not just a conqueror. He was a visionary, shaping the world he would rule. In 331 BCE, the decisive confrontation came at the Battle of Gaugamela. Darius gathered his largest army, hoping to crush the Macedonian threat once and for all. But Alexander's forces, smaller in number, acted with precision, discipline, and coordinated strategy. They struck at key points, encircled the enemy, and shattered the Persian lines. Darius fled once more, and the Persian Empire effectively ceased to exist as a unified state. Alexander entered Babylon, Susa, and Persepolis, the great capitals of Persia. Persepolis itself was burned, a symbolic act representing both revenge and the definitive end of an era. But Alexander's ambition did not stop there. He pushed further into Central Asia, encountering increasingly difficult terrain and fierce resistance from local tribes. Guerrilla tactics, unfamiliar climates, and exhaustion tested both the army and Alexander himself. He married Roxana, a noblewoman of Bactria, and attempted to unite cultures by incorporating Persian officials into his administration. Yet these policies caused tension among his Macedonian generals, creating internal strife even as the empire expanded. Eventually, Alexander turned eastward into India. His army, after nearly 10 years of continuous campaigning, was exhausted. They had marched thousands of miles, fought dozens of battles, and endured hardships unimaginable. When Alexander tried to push further, his men refused to continue. For the first time, he was forced to stop. The return journey was grueling. Heat, disease, and attrition took their toll. Alexander's empire, vast and diverse, relied almost entirely on his personal leadership and charisma. In 323 BCE, Alexander the Great died in Babylon. He was 32 years old. He left no heir capable of holding the empire together. His generals fought among themselves, dividing the territories he had conquered. Within a few decades, the empire he had built disintegrated. Alexander's story shows both the power and the peril of speed and ambition. He conquered half the known world, reshaping kingdoms, cultures, and history itself. Yet he also demonstrated that conquest without sustainable governance is fleeting. He entered history not merely as a ruler, but as a legend, a man who proved that vision, courage, and decisiveness can change the world, but also that the world once conquered demands more than a single lifetime to hold. Alexander's life reminds us that the path of greatness is rapid, perilous, and often lonely. He achieved what few could even imagine, yet his empire, built so quickly, could not endure without him. And so the name Alexander became eternal, not because of the lands he ruled, but because of the extraordinary audacity of his vision.